Both managers and consultants are tempted to take a shortcut through the data gathering process. However, managers and their decision makers run serious risks if they eschew diagnostic inquiry and systematic decision making altogether when uncertainty and pressure for quick action intensify. There are three reasons why consultants should take data gathering seriously. First, good data collection generates information about organizational functioning, effectiveness, and health. Second, data collection can be a force that sparks interest and change. It can bring organizational members together on a common definition of the situation that they can agree upon. Finally, practitioners who do data collection well can continue the process of relationship building between the consultant, their internal partners, and the organization. The consultant has the opportunity to meet organization members, demonstrate empathy, and focus on individuals. In initial meetings with practitioners, clients describe presenting problems. Presenting problems are those initial explanations of the situation that highlight symptoms of why the client is painfully aware of a situation that exists. Underlying problems can be described as the root cause or core fundamental issues that are producing symptoms. Interventions designed to address presenting problems, but that do not address underlying problems, are likely to produce only a short-term, negligible impact. One common presenting problem framed by clients that consultants may erroneously try to fix is related to training. If a consultant acts on a request for training without understanding why organizational members act the way they do, the consultant will develop a training program that might have little to do with why results are not being achieved. The point is that without greater detail as to the nature and extent of the problem from different perspectives, the chosen intervention may target the wrong areas, and they may even deepen conflict and frustrate organizational members. Presenting problems are an initial place to start, but the practitioner's real concern must be with underlying problems. These can be best explored through data gathering. We recommend a 5-step process for data gathering. Each method of data gathering has advantages and disadvantages. Based on the client's description of the problem, the consultant should determine what data should be collected and why. The client or another representative should explain the organization's members what data are being gathered, by whom, using what methods, and for what purpose. Surveys or interview guides should be prepared, along with a list of potential interviewees. Interviewees should be contacted for a time and a place to be scheduled. Use appropriate protocols depending on the data gathering approach selected. Practitioners may choose to use one or more diagnostic models to analyze the data and give feedback to the client. Depending on the method used, a different length of time for information gathering and analyzing it, and a different level of expense and different investment on the part of the organization may be required. Some approaches, such as interviewing, can have a psychological effect on the organization. Organizational development practitioners use 5 common methods of data gathering to explore presenting problems. We will explore these methods, including why practitioners use that approach and what advantages or disadvantages each approach presents. There are also pitfalls or potential problems practitioners can experience in using each approach. Interviews are meetings during which practitioners speak directly with individual organizational members. The practitioner is interested in the individual stories and perspectives of organizational members, and in a personal setting can explore their history, experiences, beliefs, and attitudes in depth. In many cases, interviews can be the only choice in getting at specific issues, such as employee experiences with a manager of a small group or a conflict between 2 managers. Because organizational members can feel threatened, interviewing requires the greatest interpersonal skills of OD practitioners. Interviews should be adept at placing people at ease, excellent listeners, and skilled conversationalists. Interviews can be formal and structured, with each interviewee asked the exact same questions, or they can be semi-structured, with an interview guide containing a general list of open-ended questions. Because interviewing can be time-intensive and resource-consuming for both the organization and the interviewer, it may not be possible to interview every relevant organizational member. The interviewer should begin with a personal introduction, reiterate the purpose of the engagement, and take time to explain what will happen with the data. Interviewers need to listen carefully to the current response, think about any follow up questions, maintain the character of the interview as a conversation, and be conscientious that time is always limited. Close the interview by inviting the participant to pose any questions they might have. Thank the interviewee and reiterate the timeline for what will happen next and when the participant will hear results, if at all. The interviewer can also choose to provide a business card or other contact information for follow up. Focus groups are discussion with typically a small number of organizational members facilitated by a consultant. Focus groups have been used by social scientists as a research tool for many years, and in recent years they've also been used frequently for public relations and market research activity. Like interviews, focus groups allow the consultant to explore experiences and situations in depth and follow up on specific areas of interest. Unlike one on one interviews, focus groups are rarely appropriate for very sensitive issues. Because they can allow for a wide range of participation and orient members towards group or team involvement, many practitioners like to use focus groups as a method of data gathering. To conduct a focus group, consultants should follow a process similar to interviewing. The considerations are somewhat different, however, since the subject matter and the structure of a focus group are different from individual interviews. Interview guides for focus groups are likely to be shorter than those used in one on one interviews, since the participation level will be much greater from a similar amount of time. Groups can be selected based on some criteria they share or be a mixed group. The advantage of homogeneous groups is that because they have something in common and that they may be able to provide depth to a problem from that perspective. The consultant should welcome participants and explain the structure of the focus group. Participants should introduce themselves, and the consultant should explain what will happen with the results of the group. When time is ended or the conversation subjects have been exhausted, the participants should be invited to pose any questions they might have of the facilitator. The consultant should repeat the objective of the engagement in the focus groups and what will be done next with the data. In organizational development, the survey or questionnaire has been one of the most commonly used methods of data gathering. The survey has developed as a means by which consultants can solicit input from a large number of organizational members at once. A number of free or inexpensive online survey tools make it very easy to implement. Generally, surveys explore a wide range of issues, as opposed to a deep investigation of one or two issues. In combination with other methods, surveys can provide a breadth where others provide depth. Whether practitioners conduct the analysis themselves or get assistance with the statistical procedures, consultants will need the training or skills to be able to read and interpret the results for their client. The following process can help a practitioner to successfully conduct an organizational survey. Surveys can be used to assess many topics. Because the surveys are often done out of habit rather than need, the reason for the survey is often unclear and the commitment to take action is unknown. Organization-wide survey topics typically imply that all members will be given the opportunity to participate in the survey. In some situations, a smaller sample may be more appropriate, less expensive, and less time-consuming. Many private companies have developed surveys that can be used to assess topics like employee engagement. When surveys are used to address specific issues, practitioners often customize the questions to suit the organization. Survey instructions should be clear about how long the survey is likely to take and how participants should submit it. The deadline should be clearly communicated and a reminder issued shortly before the survey will close. The OD practitioner can use observations to gain a better understanding of the actual work that people are doing. By watching members at work, the practitioner will have a greater understanding of the process, will build credibility in relationships, and will have a richer understanding of how any changes to the job will impact those who perform it. Data gathered through observations are prone to being filtered through the eyes of the observer. The observer, who has heard complaints that employees are unproductive because they socialize frequently, may be more likely to observe that. In addition, observations are likely to alter the circumstances and potentially change the behavior of those being observed. Anyone being observed is likely to want to make a good impression and to complete the work in the most diligent way. While observations are given a general sense of how things will happen, a consultant is not likely to see the entire range of solutions. The observer should not overgeneralize from only a small sample of observation. Finally, observation would not be a good choice in situations where the phenomenon being observed is rare or infrequent. Observations are less useful for studying unusual problems or infrequent interaction. These data are generally readily available because they are produced during the ordinary course of an organizational activity. They can usually be granted in an inconspicuous manner without changing the data themselves. As a result, unobtrusive measures can be highly valid sources of data. Historical data and archives consist of both public and non-public records. These articles are less likely to be influenced by changing perceptions and interpretations of an event over time. These consist of a wide variety of documents that are often used for financial, legal, or HR purposes, such as job descriptions, goals and objectives, personnel files, or meeting minutes. Most organizations maintain databases of customer, financial, and employee records. These can be useful sources of data to determine, for example, how many people were hired in a given year or where most customers might live. Social media websites, wikis, online bulletin boards, and review websites can illustrate past, current, and prospective employee and customer attitudes about the organization. An organization's physical environment can say a great deal about its culture. In organizations where status and hierarchy are important elements of the culture, executives maintain large offices with expansive windows. Members describing the organization as one big family or a sinking ship give great insight into how they think about their culture. Similarly, stories serve as a teaching function. Organizational stories can be illuminating for a consultant who wants to understand the organizational culture and context. Language, such as stories and metaphors, occurs naturally in organizational disclosures, but can be elicited during interviews or focus groups as well. An interview may be asked to tell a story that would give a newcomer an insight into the organization. Choosing a method of data gathering involves several considerations. Each of the methods presents various advantages and disadvantages, so the consultant and client must choose between them with the knowledge that none is perfect. Each method has a cost to the organization and the consultant in terms of the time and monetary expense for both data gathering and data analysis. The client may not allow the consultant to have access to the data, or it might not be practical. Some methods of data gathering are better suited to particular types of problems. Some methods are more prone to respondent and consultant bias than others. Some methods allow the consultant to have greater flexibility in terms of following up on particular questions of interest or items that come up during the course of data gathering. Mixing methods and triangulating the same issue from a different perspective can solidify an interpretation. Data gathering is itself a response to ethical concerns. However, data gathering also presents consultants with a number of opportunities to face further ethical challenges. The primary opportunity for an ethical dilemma concerns misuse of data that occurs when the voluntary consent or confidentiality of the client system is violated or abridged. Before gathering data, practitioners must explain what will be done with it, giving the organization members an opportunity to participate with free and informed consent or decline to participate without consequence. These ethical principles require that practitioners be vigilant in protecting data. Notes from interviews and handwritten surveys should be kept with the consultant or in a secure location under lock and key. Finally, data gathering is concerned to benefit the client, not the practitioner. The practitioner should aim to gather data that is relevant to the problem described or that would illuminate related areas of the problem, all with the client's consent. The practitioner should avoid collecting data simply because it's interesting or useful for another engagement.